Hey, and welcome to Game Talk episode 34. I'm your host, Ahmed Mian. I'm joined by Connor,
Hey guys.
Michael.
We're only on 34?
Yeah, we didn't record much while you were gone. And
Oh,
Tristan.
geez.
Hey guys, how's it going?
The first thing I want to talk about today are game economies. So, a lot of video games, MMOs in particular, have thriving economies within them in which plot prices fluctuate due to supply and demand, much like our actual real world economy. And I just kind of wanted to float the idea of game economies out there and see, and maybe just ask you guys which economies you guys have experience with, and basically your thoughts on game economies.
So I have experience sort of in GTA Online and sort of what that entails, but I've also been doing some reading into EVE Online and WoW, and then I got some things here about Fallout 76 and Red Dead 2 we'll get to in a little bit, but sort of there's a difference I'm seeing now between what is an MMO economy and what is essentially like a new AAA game online multiplayer sort of economy.
Right. So there's a delineation where there are systems where you can essentially pay real life money to get whatever in-game currency, right? And then there's other games where it's all in-game. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And I feel like a system where you can purchase currency, whatever that may be, and inflate the value of that currency. It's kind of like an economy destroying thing. I wonder how those games kind of manage their economies.
So there's apparently these World of Warcraft tokens. I've never played World of Warcraft myself. But apparently you can buy these tokens for real world money. A US token costs about $20 US. And currently it looks like it's sitting about 115,355 gold for one of these tokens.
Okay, so what can you do with these tokens?
So you trade them in and you get in-game money.
Oh, okay.
Can't you also
okay,
trade in-game money for the tokens and pay your subscription with them?
Can you?
I think that I don't know if it was WoW, but there's a game where you can do that. I just don't remember which one
you
it
can
is.
do that. Yeah.
Might be Eve.
Okay, yeah, you can. So if you purchase them for gold, you can use it to add 30 days to your subscription.
That's neat, but like how what I don't understand is how does the game account for, like, how is the experience balanced for everyone, in which like someone who has a lot of money to burn can just buy these things with impunity, whereas someone who really wants to like actually live the game and play it and grind out the money, like,
Well, the short answer is it's not balanced.
It's not.
Right.
Because there's actual inflation in these sort of MMO economies where who knows how much these tokens would have cost before. They could have cost maybe like 5,000, 10,000 gold. But the fact is that, like, with the way World of Warcraft and all these other MMOs work is that the game system itself pumps more money in. So there's just more money available in the game, causing stuff to inflate. And I know World of Warcraft especially has had several issues where their economy has essentially hyperinflated, and just everything in the game becomes just insanely expensive.
Right. MMOs have a lot of systems in place to try to stop that. Like a lot of things you might find annoying, like weapon durability and things where you have to like repair things, or like maybe like a payment you have to pay to respawn or something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But things like that have to be in the game because money has to be taken out of that economy to try to prevent hyperinflation like this. Because
But I feel like hyperinflation is always the end state, though. Like, are there any examples of these measures being successfully implemented?
So inflation's a thing that's always going to happen, and it's actually pretty healthy for an economy to have some inflation. But the problem with these sort of game economies is that the systems themselves, when you start building them, it's not really designed to ever take money back out of the system in any way.
Right.
It's just you're constantly pouring more and more in. And I think World of Warcraft is probably one of those. It's been going on so long that there's so many case studies where you can find that, like, they probably at some point, I'm not sure if I have a specific example or not, they had to implement something to rein this back in.
So my question is, these game economies, they inflate. Let's take World of Warcraft for example.
Yeah.
You said you could buy one of those WoW tokens for however X amount of dollars, right?
Like $20, yeah.
$20. Do you ever see a case in which the WoW economy inflates so much that one of those tokens, like suddenly just buying one of them for 150k gold or whatever, is like nothing? So they increase the value of the token, thereby like increasing the price you have to pay. What I'm getting at is like, can real game inflation drive up the prices can in-game inflation drive up the prices in the real world?
I'm not entirely certain on that.
Think?
I think these tokens are kind of fixed, but as far as like their in-game value is always fluctuating, I think that their real-world value doesn't really fluctuate. But
so they don't. Okay, so for example, they don't always give out 150k. They kind of scale with what the economy is at. Is
yeah,
what you're saying. Okay, that makes more sense. I remember like I've only had really two-ish experience with game economies. One was RuneScape, and I was too little when I played that to really even know what was going on. But the other one was MapleStory, and I just remembered like it was so interesting to me, like just the day-to-day, free market. You know what I'm talking about, Connor?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Hundreds and thousands of players just stood there spamming and selling their things, and the little portals that led to like player-owned shops in which they set their own prices, and you can peruse and buy items there. And it was so interesting. Like really, like when I was really into it, I was really kind of attuned with the prices of various like common commodities, like 60% scrolls. Do you remember that, Connor?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
And like the price of a 60% scroll kind of like dictated the prices of everything else. And
so that was the milk of MapleStory.
Yeah, it was really fun. Like day to day, the street value of that scroll would either increase or decrease, and it was a game in and of itself, just trying to keep track of all these prices and trying to make a profit.
I mean, Warframe has a system similar to that, where you can trade some items, mostly prime items, and I've made quite a bit of in-game currency just farming.
Yeah.
Mabinogi was an interesting case because there were a lot of items you had to get like to learn skills and stuff that would just be worth millions of gold, and like I wasn't playing the game right, I guess, as it were, because like you could only buy them from other players, and I played most of my time like doing missions and trying to like sell stuff to NPCs, and I eventually realized that like what the NPCs offered for something was basically nothing compared to what you could get for it, like by playing the market and stuff. Like, because the game, like the cost of things in the game hadn't really inflated with the player market side of things. So basically the game was unplayable if you were trying to like opt out of that side of the game.
See, I don't like the idea of you said this item gave you some skills?
Yes.
So I don't know if I like that idea. I mean, your skills are part of your core gameplay. I don't think that should be locked behind like high prices, especially with an inflating economy like that. It should be like, experience combat based, unlocking skills. But that's another
right. I mean, it wasn't only attainable with money. It was just a really rare drop, and like you were far more likely to buy it from another player than you were to find it.
Gotcha. Tristan, were you going to say something?
Yeah. I was recently watching Polygon's video series Peacecraft, just as an
that's a great series.
Great series.
But what we're talking about here did bring something to mind, where early on in like the series, they had essentially like early on they had like 10 copper, and that was like nothing in that game, and they bought the ability to gather herbs, and then once they reached the capital city, they sold like one stack of those herbs for like 100,000 gold.
Wow.
Just an insane amount of gold that for a basic material like that, where if they had gone to like any of the NPC traders, yeah, they would have gotten nothing, but sort of like with that money, they had enough to just sort of buy like a motorcycle and real armor from like the games shops and stuff. And sort of like what I wanted to talk about, because when we were talking about doing this thing about MMO or like MMO economies, I sort of wanted to talk about the differences I'm noticing between these ones we're talking about, Eve, Maple Story, World of Warcraft. And I sort of wanted to bring up what I'm starting to see in like Fallout 76 and Red Dead 2.
So I'm not really familiar with the economies in those games. Could you maybe give a little explanation for each one?
Yeah, so
Or why they're particularly interesting, those economies?
what I found interesting about them is like there's still this sort of like currency you're trying to get to buy stuff in the game. And it's sort of different. It's not really like a player driven at all. For example, with Fallout 76, it's all about like challenges to get the premium currency so you can get the various like I think it's mostly like what is it? It's like decorations and clothes and all that other sort of stuff.
But that premium currency, is it still... I mean, you don't use that to trade with other players, right? So, I mean, are there a finite amount of those items in the game? Like those cosmetic items in the game?
The
'Cause
Atom
I'm not
one,
understanding why it would mess up the economy.
So what I was mostly seeing is like the grind for it, because the grind between like what we've been talking about and the grind for what you would get in Fallout or Red Dead Redemption is completely sort of different here. Like for you to get a stack of plants in World of Warcraft and then get the currency is nothing. To get like sort of like what everybody has been talking about online is like to get a costume or to get like some upgrade. Yeah, okay, so in the camp there's some stuff you can buy, or you can buy stuff for your camp. You can buy icons and emotes, but mostly this camp thing is, I think, one of the things people were talking about is being able to buy stuff for your camp. Sort of like you can buy a generator and a purifier, or maybe those are just like upgrades to what those look like. But it was mostly when I was doing this research, it was mostly about that grind for it.
So the grind for it is one thing, but
Yeah.
But is this system an economy? Like,
I guess
will the price of that item fluctuate depending on how many people like buy it or whatever? Or
when you put it like that, no, it is not sort of that economy. It's not going to change. The only thing that really will sort of change is the amount of real world money you would have to put in to get everything.
Yeah, so I think that's like an important... Actually, it's important that you brought that up because there's like a very important distinction between like an in-game like economy system and just like an in-game store. Right? So I think this is kind of an example of the latter.
Yeah, this is
because
like
there's no like there's no like finite commodity of items. There's no like trading between players, right? This is just stuff that you can buy. To get stuff for your Fallout 76 base or whatever.
Right.
I think there are like some parallels there though, because like you mentioned Grand Theft Auto earlier, Tristan, and I'm not an active player, but like my understanding is that Rockstar has essentially intentionally inflated their market like absolutely out of control in order to help them sell shark cards. Like they just constantly keep making things more and more expensive. Yeah,
like some cars that are kind of basic in the game cost more than $100,000, whereas like you can get like there's this as they keep bringing out newer and newer stuff, it's constantly costing more than $1 million, 10 million in-game dollars to get.
And so that's not like there's no player trading there, right? Like it's all.
The only ways that there are to get money in GTA Online, it comes down to playing events, doing the different businesses within the game, and buying shark cards.
Just to put the inflation in perspective, there was a golden airplane that was released for like $10 million, and that at one point was what everyone wanted. It was really expensive, and no one had it. Now that's nothing. There are sports cars that are more expensive than that plane.
I guess that's sort of like, yeah, this is, I think what we're seeing now is there's store economies that are getting out of, or there's like in-game stores where it's getting out of control, and looking at it from like, there are MMO economies that are like player driven. I'm wondering if there's something we can't learn from those MMO economies to apply to these sort of like game stores in some way to keep it in balance. But
see, I don't think they want to keep it in balance.
There's no incentive to.
The one important difference I see between these economies, like, yeah, you mentioned that like it was once very expensive, but now, you know, the price has dropped drastically. Rockstar is controlling that price, right?
Yeah.
They initially set the price for that item, and then people bought it or whatever, correct?
Right.
The cool thing about like Maple Story, for instance, the free market essentially was a free market. The price was strictly dictated by the player base without any controlling input from the developer. Like, it was strictly driven by supply and demand and what item was like rare at the moment, you know, that sort of thing. And that's what I found really fascinating about that economy. Like, that was truly like, I feel like you could actually study that economy and like apply theory to that economy and gain knowledge out of it.
Oh yeah, a lot of MMO companies have like economists on the
Some
payroll.
MMOs can change their market flow by like reintroducing an item that's old. Like Warframe does this all the time, where they'll like release an ancient Prime item
Ancient Prime
for like a temporary time,
cool.
like a Prime item that was vaulted and put out of rotation.
So that'll drive prices down.
Yeah, it'll drive prices down, and then
that's very smart.
As soon as it comes back in or it goes back into the vault, the prices will start rising again. So even if you want to buy items, you just have to wait until it's unvaulted, and then suddenly everyone's getting parts again.
See,
it keeps that in constant supply.
Yeah, so again, that's an example of the developer kind of manipulating the game economy, which I'm not saying is anything, there's nothing wrong with that. I just think it's fascinating that there's like two different styles of game economy that we've kind of been talking about here.
The only thing I wanted to bring up real quick was like sort of how long, I guess, people have been saying it's going to take to get stuff in Fallout 76 and Red Dead. Running the math for Fallout 76, it's about 211 straight days of playing.
Jeez.
Jesus.
That's absurd.
To buy everything without buying the Atom cards. As for Red Dead, unless they...
So this is like playtime versus actually just outright buying it?
Okay. Well, the actual cost, as of when I was doing this, which was in November, it would have cost about $240 to buy everything in the Atom shop. And in Red Dead, the fastest you could get, it took about 9 hours to buy a pistol, or 21 straight hours for a rifle.
Okay. So yeah, it's basically, the incentive is to buy it.
Yep.
You know, like they're expecting people who actually wanted to buy it. Which, I mean, hey, I guess is a sound business model. I'm just not too big a fan of that.
It works, but yeah.
I mean, I feel like there's no reason to want all of it. Like,
there isn't, but like what Rockstar and Bethesda are doing is like preying on that gamer mentality of wanting to have it all, because so many gamers, like, you know, that's how they think.
Right. And I just think that's going to be a dated way of thinking. Like, I think that's going to just have to go away.
We shall see.
Yeah.
I don't know. All right, so the next topic on the agenda is a pretty big one that happened, I want to say a couple of months ago. It's just we haven't had a chance to talk about it yet. It's the birth of the Epic Games Store. So if you haven't heard of this, Epic Games, which you probably know of as the creators of Fortnite, have announced that they're creating a digital store in the same vein as Steam, in which they will, you know, sell video games. And the big wave caused by this announcement, first of all, it's the first direct competitor to Steam. So it's the first digital distributor of PC games that's, you know, pretty much going head to head with Steam.
Why is Origin not going head to head with Steam?
Yeah, Origin is just EA.
Well, Origin has a more limited selection of games, does it not?
I don't believe Origin is exclusively EA games. I think there are a few non-EA games on there.
But I think the Epic Game Store is going to be comparable in size and scope to Steam.
I think so
That's
too.
why whereas Origin is just, I believe it's just EA games and maybe a few others, but
There are
Someone-
definitely
someone can
non-EA
correct me
games
on
on
that.
there, just not very many.
gotcha. Okay. But my second point was that the split between Epic and the game developers. So I believe it's 88-12. So 88% of the revenue generated on the Epic Game Store will go to the developers, and 12% will go to Epic for hosting their game on their digital storefront. Whereas for Steam, the ratio was more like 70-30. So that's a pretty big incentive for developers to have their game on the Epic Game Store. And we're already seeing things like quote unquote PC like storefront exclusives. Like Metro Exodus announced that they're going to be available on the Epic Game Store first, like timed exclusivity, because like a lot of developers are now swearing their allegiance to the Epic Game Store. Obviously, Steam is not very happy about that. Valve is not very happy about that. I just kind of wanted to bring up the Epic Game Store. It's creating a lot of waves in the industry, so kind of wanted to talk about it.
I want to play devil's advocate for this, and that the Epic Game Store, while it does have a functional storefront, does not offer a lot of the things that Steam offers right now, and that's going to come around and bite them very quickly.
Right, they don't have a lot of things like the community features, the workshop. They don't have a lot of that in place. They don't have trading cards.
But what I think, obviously, they're not going to be as mature as Steam right off the bat. But what I think Epic does have going for them is the fact that they're Epic in 2019.
Right, they have
just look at the way
infinite
Fortnite
money.
has evolved. Not only that, like Fortnite generates them uncountable amounts of money, but look at the way Fortnite evolves so quickly, like almost week to week. Epic have shown that they're willing to adapt and change very quickly. So I think a lot of like publishers and just small game developers with games that they're trying to sell see that value, that Epic would be a good home for them.
And it's not just the 88-12 split. If you're a developer working in Unreal, you don't have to pay the Unreal royalties on the Epic Store.
Yes, that's another good point.
So that's
Although,
a huge incentive to release there.
But yeah, Epic's creating all of these incentives for games to move on there, and it seems like it's happening. Like, it seems like every few days I read a story about like so and so is coming to the Epic Game Store, and like I think Metro Exodus was originally like already like set to release on Steam or whatever, and
It was. They're honoring
and then
pre-orders.
after Epic, yeah, and then after Epic Games, the Epic Game Store announcement was made, like they kind of just made a deal with them.
There was a poll. It was it GDC? It was something here recent, and only 6% of developers say that Steam earns their 30% cut.
Wow.
So that means that 94% of developers think that they're paying too much, and if that there's an alternative that has the audience, they would take it.
Yeah, it's kind of a genius move by Epic. They saw this and swooped in, and 88%. That's significant.
Yeah.
And
I think, I don't know. I think I see a lot of people online saying like that they don't want to install another storefront, and I just don't think they get it, because I feel like most people already have it installed. Because like, who hasn't played Fortnite? Honestly,
Yeah, I have not.
they're okay. So let's just be clear. Their games launcher is just going to turn into their games storefront.
right? And it already has.
It's basically just going to become Steam.
And they're giving out free games right now, and I want to make a point that's kind of interesting. I got Subnautica on the Epic Games Store, and I wasn't sure if I'd be able to, but you can also use Steam VR with the Epic Games Store. So, like, all the Steam VR games still work.
Wow.
Yeah. You just still have to have
that's-
Steam installed.
Yeah, and I imagine, like, near the beginning at least, I imagine people will have both the Epic Game Store and Steam installed, but, 5-10 years down the line, I can see a situation where, PC gamers, a large chunk of PC gamers only have the Epic Game Store installed, only use the Epic Game Store. Just because I don't doubt Epic's ability in the slightest to really kind of take this market by storm. Like, I feel like they know exactly what they're doing, and they're going to give Steam a run for their money.
And they need it to. Like, Steam has a lot of excellent features, but they really do take advantage of their monopoly more than they should.
Right.
Like, they take forever to improve on things, and they just let features die often.
And this is kind of an unrelated note, but I love the fact that Epic, makes games too. They make Fortnite. When's the last time Valve has made a game? Like, honestly.
Artifact.
See, like, Valve is pretty much just synonymous with Steam at this point, and I don't like that. I like the fact that someone who makes games is also providing a storefront. But that's just like a personal thing. That doesn't really have any kind of impact on anything, I think.
I like the idea of an Epic Game Store. I think it's going to need a lot of work, like we've been saying. They got a lot to catch up on with as far as like getting people to come over to them versus Steam. Because I don't think we're going to have an issue with developers going to the Epic Game Store. I think we're going to have an issue with getting a consumer base on the Epic Game Store. Because like you said, I mean, yeah, it's silly that people would
That's
think
a good point.
That's a good point. Of like, oh, I'm going to have another launcher. But that could be the thing that keeps people from going to the Epic Game Store, is that they don't want to download another launcher.
That's a great point. And, convenience is king, really. Like, people do what's most convenient. And
I feel like everybody already has it, though. Everybody's played Fortnite.
But I think I think everyone, like the consumer side of things, I think everyone there just needs to have a shift in mentality, because it's not just going to be your Fortnite launcher anymore. It'll be that as well as a Steam,
Yeah.
Right.
And I think where this will maybe do more damage is like new PC gamers, right? Because like I can understand if you're already like part of Steam's ecosystem or whatever, you don't want to have like, you might not want to have both for whatever reason. I don't know why, but like I could see that being an argument someone makes, like, oh, I'm already on Steam, I don't want to be on an Epic Game Store, unless Epic Game Store has, exclusives or whatever that Steam doesn't have, which I could also see happening.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the Epic Game Store website right now to try and figure out what's on here that would convince me I need to go here instead of Steam.
I mean, the Epic Game Store is the director of publishing strategy is actually the guy who used to run Steam Spy.
And again, it already has like the single best exclusive that you could possibly have in 2019, which is Fortnite.
But can't you also launch Fortnite from... Oh, no, you can't. You can't launch Fortnite from Steam.
Nah, the only way to run Fortnite is to have the Epic Game Store installed.
Right. Yeah.
And that's more than Steam had when they started. Steam had Half-Life 2, and I would say...
It really is kind of incredible. Like, Fortnite is kind of their Trojan horse to get in onto people's computers.
Well, Steam did that with Half-Life 2, and people hated it.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, Steam was the first to do that.
Right.
And then again, Fortnite is a lot... I know Half-Life 2 was big, but Fortnite is a lot bigger.
So much bigger.
Yeah. Everyone has Fortnite. Like... And there's no reason not to, because it's free. Like, it wouldn't surprise... Like, I wonder how far in advance Epic had this idea, Like, obviously, like, bare minimum, it had to have been... The idea had to have been formed, like, a year or two ago, right? To set the wheels in motion to get where they are now. But I wonder if they had it, like, from when they saw Fortnite really, like, blowing up, they were like, okay, we can... now do this to compete with Steam.
I think most developers at this
Something
point,
to think about,
right? Like, would have their own storefront on their website in some way. Most larger developers, I think it was a matter of like getting to the scale. Like, has Epic before Fortnite been able to have like like facing their consumers as much as they have with this, to be able to say, hey, we're going to launch our own store. You should come here because it's way better. I'm sure they were selling stuff from...
I mean, they had their own engine.
Yeah, but in that, they had an engine, which is great for developers. I think this is the time that, like, they've really been in the eye of consumers, where it's like, oh, hey, we have these huge games on our store. You should come here. Instead of, like, we have this awesome engine. You should develop for it. And I think that's the thing, is now they have the ability to go, hey, consumers, you can come to us and we got your games here. And now they have a chance to take on Steam. I'm not sure how
Right.
long they've been planning it. Probably a while, because, like you said, it's probably been within the last year or two. But I'm just wondering who's going to be next, sort of. Because there's other people who have like the ability, you can buy your game from them online. I'm just wondering who's going to be the next biggest thing that they can then sort of try and launch something like this.
Well, right now I can't see anyone matching up to like Epic's ability to do something
not
like
right
this.
now.
But that's the fascinating thing. 3-4 years ago, no one on the planet could have predicted the trajectory Epic took. Epic is a total wild card in like gaming history, really. Like they literally they've been around forever, but in the past couple of years they came out of nowhere and just skyrocketed to the top. And it's just fascinating seeing them essentially come from nowhere and just take over the industry like this. And first it was Fortnite, and now it's this Epic Game Store, and it's fascinating, and I'm very eagerly anticipating and watching their every move to see where they go next, because they really are kind of like a wild card in my eyes.
Yeah.
I mean, like, they made so much money off of Fortnite that they back paid, like, they renegotiated the contract on the Unreal Engine and back paid like 2 years to developers because they just like didn't need the money, I guess.
I know, it's insane. I mean, Fortnite makes hundreds of millions of dollars a month, so.
All right, guys, I gotta go. It was good talking to y'all.
All right, see you, Connor.
I'm happy this is happening, and I do want to see other competitors get here at some point, because competition is never bad for the consumers. And I think this will help. If we have some competition here in the online sort of storefront for gaming, I think that'll only make it more accessible to other people.
Absolutely. That's a great point, because Steam has had no competition for years, like years and years and years. And a lot of people were growing unhappy with Steam. Like there's a lot of shovelware on Steam. Steam has like kind of no kind of checks to see if the games going on there are legitimate, Like someone can just rip Unity assets and make a game, like quote unquote game, and throw it onto Steam. And I think the introduction of the Epic Game Store will kind of force their hand. They're no longer the only player on the field. Like they have direct competition, and if they're not careful, Epic will eat their lunch. Like they definitely will. So I think this can only be a good thing for the industry as a whole, because it, like you said, finally introduces some competition. All right. The last thing I wanted to talk about, another kind of industry shaking news here. Bungie has split from Activision and retained full ownership of the Destiny IP. So that is a huge deal. For as long as I've been in video games, I don't think I've ever seen a publisher developer split like this, and then the developer subsequently keeping the IP. Bungie had entered a 10-year partnership with Activision, in which Activision would publish Destiny. And so since Activision was paying the bills, Activision had a lot of say of what happened in Destiny, right? Like, so we don't have any concrete proof of this, but like it's almost certain that like the microtransactions in Destiny were, Activision's, like they came from Activision's brain, the whole silver economy in Destiny, that's probably because of Activision. And Activision, as a publisher, as like one of the biggest publishers in the world, they only saw dollar signs, right? And while Bungie seems like they're in it for the players, Activision seems to be only in it for the money. And that's why, like, when Forsaken came out, the players loved it, but the Activision reportedly was told Bungie that they were disappointed in Forsaken sales, and Bungie retaliated by saying that they're very pleased with the player response. So like the seeds of this like split were kind of there, but I never actually imagined it would actually happen. And apparently when it happened and when the announcement was made at Bungie, apparently people cheered and clapped and like brought out champagne. So like Bungie did not like being under Activision's foot at all. And I'm very curious to see where Destiny goes from here, because I finally feel like, to me, it feels like this is setting Destiny free, especially that now that Bungie fully owns it. Granted, there are some hurdles to come, mainly money, right? Like Activision was paying the bills. Now Bungie is technically an independent studio, which is kind of fascinating. But yeah, I kind of want to just bring up the Activision Bungie split and get your guys' thoughts.
I mean, it's about time because Activision was not really a good thing for Bungie, as it kind of saw out. It's just, Bungie could seem to work better as an independent because, if I'm not wrong, under Microsoft they were largely left alone to their own devices, and they churned out some great games.
I mean, let's just look at that for a sec. When they were with Microsoft and allegedly left alone to their own devices, they pumped out one of the most prolific and famous video game series of all time, Halo. Everybody knows what Halo is. And granted, it's probably kind of a shadow of its former self now. I think that's because Bungie stopped after Halo 3, right? Like Halo 3 was the peak of that series' popularity, and then it kind of went downhill from there.
Yeah.
If we're truly seeing a return of Bungie at like full power or whatever, like I'm very excited to see where Destiny goes, especially because I'm pretty invested in Destiny. Like Destiny 2 was my most played game of 2018 by far. And, I have clanmates who play Destiny like all the time. So I'm pretty invested in the Destiny like ecosystem. So I'm very much looking forward to what is to come.
Yeah, I played a lot. I played a fair amount of Destiny 2 when it came out, and I really enjoyed it. But then I ran into a sort of like the wall of, oh, they want me to buy this DLC to keep playing at a higher level. Oh, everybody else is already at that level. I sort of fell out of it, which kind of sucked because it was a really fun game. I just wish there was more I could have done, like as a single player. But I know Bungie has always been one for their craft, and so seeing that they're away from a publisher is sort of reassuring and scary at the same time.
Right.
I can't remember a game that Bungie has done independently since they've always been with Halo or Destiny. And now, while I'm excited to see what comes next, I just hope it isn't going to be the thing that will sink them as a studio. Because Bungie does amazing work.
I think in the near term, at least, you don't have to worry about that because they're going to be supporting Destiny for the foreseeable future. I can't see them making like a new IP in 2 years, right?
Yeah, that'd be really tough.
So Destiny is still their main thing. I'm just curious to see what the absence of Activision will do for Destiny, because like Destiny has had so many problems in the past 6-7 years when Bungie was with Activision. Like there are so many stories of troubled development. Like Jason Schreier has reported, I think even in his this is one of the chapters in his book about the troubled development of Destiny. Like the reason Destiny doesn't have a story is because they had to meet absurd deadlines set by Activision. Like they had to completely scrap the story and like rewrite it from fragments, and like entire sections of the game had to be scrapped because they wouldn't be finished on time. Yeah. So that's why Destiny 1 in its original like vanilla state was such kind of like a hodgepodge mess that it was just like a series of missions barely held together by incomprehensible plot. But like now that these insane deadlines have been lifted, I'm very curious to see what Bungie will make. Like the whole reason like even the annual pass kind of existed was because Activision mandated them to drop content every X at certain intervals, like every X like months or whatever. They had to drop content. They were obligated to drop content. And now that they no longer have that pressure, they can sort of just be quiet for a while, develop a major expansion or like whatever they want to do without fear of an axe coming down on their heads. And I think that's a huge relief. Like you could, and that's probably why they were cheering when they found out that they no longer belong to Activision.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see. I don't play a lot of Destiny 2 anymore, but I will be interested in seeing what happens with that. I'm sort of wondering, this is actually like, now you've like, we brought this up when we started talking about this, but this is probably the first time I can think of a studio going independent and taking their IP with them. The only other one I can maybe think of is I can't remember who has Hitman, but
IO, maybe?
Yeah, IO, I think they went away from Square Enix. They took Hitman with them, but is what I believe what happened. It's been a while since I read up on that, but
See, but that's more believable than Bungie taking
Destiny
from
yeah.
Activision, especially when you think it's Activision, right? Like, I wonder what kind of magical lawyer Bungie had to make this kind of deal, because they were contractually obligated for a decade to make Destiny for Activision, and somehow they boom, like they separate and they get Destiny. Like, that's just crazy to me.
It'll be interesting to see where, if this could be, what sort of other studios are out there. Like, we know that a lot of people are under EA. We know a lot of people are under Activision. I don't know if I could see this happening again, but I know it could be good for especially some of the people under EA.
Wait, so what exactly are you saying?
So, like, I'm interested in seeing where Bungie's going to go with this and whether or not it's repeatable.
Oh, so are you saying, do you think Bungie might get picked up by someone else?
There's a possibility down the road that Bungie could get picked up again by somebody. But
I agree it's possible, but I think they're going to want to stay independent for as long as they physically can.
And I think that's great for them. They absolutely should. What I'm wondering is whether or not there's any other studio right now that's looking at this and going, can we do that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Who knows?
Could DICE do it? I don't think so.
Imagine if BioWare
decided they were going to go independent. I don't know how much EA owns each of those companies, but this is sort of like
judging by outward appearances, they seem to own them a lot.
Pretty much entirely. Which is why I was like, I wasn't sure how much of a hold Activision had over Bungie, so I don't know if this is something that could be done anywhere else, and I'm not sure whether or not the end result of this is going to be totally positive, but I wonder if there are studios out there looking at this going, can we get out from our publisher?
Right, and again, yes, we don't know what the end result will truly be, but I'm extremely optimistic. And the only kind of hurdle now they have full creative freedom. That's the most important thing to me. The only kind of negative out of this is, money. Mm-hmm. They now have to figure out different ways of getting their funds, which I don't know if that means like charging for content, extra content in Destiny, or like more microtransactions just to offset the cost, then go for it, because I'm more confident knowing that more microtransactions are coming from Bungie and not Activision, because I know the minds at I know and trust the minds at Bungie. That's where I'm coming from. I did not trust Activision, and I really do think that with them out of the equation, that Destiny is going to surpass all of our expectations. But that again, I'm not the only one thinking this way. There is a lot of pressure on Bungie now to deliver, because they can no longer, if they mess up again, they can't really point the finger at Activision. It's all on them now. So it's kind of Bungie's time to prove themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, any final thoughts on the Bungie Activision situation?
I think it's for the best, honestly.
I agree, yeah. When I found out, I was like, my jaw was on the floor. I could not believe it. Like, I was shocked, but in a really good way.
That way Bungie can work at their own pace. They can get stuff done. They don't have Activision breathing down their neck to put this, and that, and this microtransaction or that microtransaction. Because, believe it or not, Activision's a really bad publisher.
I don't know if bad. I mean, they're greedy. Let's just put it there. They're greedy.
They are very greedy.
Yeah. All right, so as always, we're going to end by talking about what we've been playing. I'll go first, I suppose. I've been playing Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, probably not to the surprise of anyone. Yeah, I mean, it's Smash, you know? And not only is it Smash, it's probably the best Smash, you know? Granted, I still prefer the gameplay of Melee, but this comes in at a pretty close second, which I was not expecting going into this game. I thought it'd be fun, but I didn't think I would enjoy watching it competitively, which I really do. And you can see that reflected in both the competitive communities of Smash 4 and Smash Melee. Kind of like the top players of each of those games are all coalescing on Smash Ultimate, and it's a really good time to be a professional Smash fan because it's got all the big names from both of the big games.
So would you say it's finally a game that will kill Melee?
Nothing will ever kill Melee.
Nothing will kill
Melee.
Melee.
Melee will always be around,
Oh,
but this is the game that will come the closest to killing Melee, I think, because most, if not all, of the big Melee players are also playing Ultimate, and they're not stopping. They're gonna compete at very high levels, like at Genesis and stuff like that. So the competitive scene for Ultimate is very healthy, and just beyond that, it's so much fun to play. I can't tell you the countless amount of times I've just booted up my Switch and just threw a level 9 computer on and just fought them. Nothing else. Just fought them. Not playing story mode, not playing classic mode or anything. Just playing the game. The gameplay is so good. It's so good. And the amazing thing about this game is that I don't think there are any bad characters. Everyone, the balance is so good in this game. Everyone's viable in some way. And which is really rare, especially considering this is a fighting game with 70 plus characters. It's crazy to think that the game is so balanced that even, and obviously there are tiers of fighters, but everyone is viable to an extent. There is 0 characters which I would be I would never play that.
Even Pichu is viable.
0. And for your information, Pichu is godlike in this game. I love playing as Pichu.
I love Pichu.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be a joke character,
Yeah, he's
not
incredible.
something that's super viable.
Yeah. But yeah,
Shulk's probably still trash.
Yeah.
Please tell me Shulk's still trash.
No, I mean everyone, the characters who were trash in Smash 4 have all gotten buffed, I think.
Yeah, certainly feels that way.
And some of the characters have gotten ridiculous buffs. Bowser's just a complete monster now. You'd think Bowser wouldn't be fast, but he's lightning fast in this game.
But I heard King K. Rool was a monster too.
Yeah, King K. Rool. All of the heavy characters are really good. But yeah, just going beyond the gameplay aspects of it, in which it's almost perfect. I would say the gameplay is pretty much perfect for all intents and purposes. It's crammed with so much stuff. World of Light is a 40, 50 plus hour story mode. Granted, it can get repetitive at times, and I've barely even dipped my toes in it just because I've only been playing matches and some classic mode here and there, and that's it. And I've already sunk 60 plus hours into the game just doing that. So, and then there's the classic mode as well, in which every character has a uniquely themed classic mode, which I really appreciated. I've played a couple dozen of them, I think, at this point, and they're all really fun. And just the sheer amount of stuff crammed into this game, the online isn't terrible. It's not good. I won't say it's good, but it's the best online Smash has had yet. It's definitely playable. I'll leave it there. It's playable. I've had fun hopping online with Fox and Crom and just wrecking people. But yeah, Smash Ultimate, love it. It's the best Smash yet. It really lives up to its title. It's the ultimate Smash game. But Melee's still the best. Michael?
Well, partners, I've been playing a little cowboy game called Red Dead Redemption 2, partner. It has me talking like that all the time now, every time I think about it.
Yeah, Michael, I forgot you were gone for 6 months. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I already gushed about Red Dead 2.
Oh, you did? That's
episode.
Disappointing.
But no, you can go ahead and talk about it if that's what
That's the only game I've been playing.
All right.
That's
it.
Go
for it.
Well, if you've already gushed about it, there's not much I can say other than I'm never going to touch the online mode. Ever.
The online mode's kind of disappointing right now. I've tried to play it a few times with my friends, and we've just kind of gotten bored each time.
And by the way, it hasn't been 6 months, it's been 3.
It felt like 6 months.
It felt like a long time.
It wasn't that long. Oh, Yeah, it was for me. It felt like a year. I've aged. Fallout 76 launched and was a disappointment, and I didn't even get to play the disappointment.
Oh yeah, we took that game to task on this show. Like I was
Oh,
actually
no,
I was
I
thinking
missed
about you
out?
when we were talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean you can go back and watch the episode, but we like shredded it.
Oh, no. I was so hyped.
Well, I think Katie was on that episode and she was a pretty big fan, but like yeah.
I almost bought it, but
I was definitely extremely against it and very angry at
honestly, I should have bought
Bethesda for
Spider-Man
making
instead of Red Dead. But,
You think so? You're disappointed in Red Dead?
I'm not that disappointed. I haven't even gotten into it yet. In fact,
Yeah.
my PlayStation is currently on the other side of the room, and I need to hook it in so I can actually play the game again. But
Yeah, I absolutely loved it, but
it's
yeah, you
enjoyable.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Hunting is enjoyable. Riding around on a horse is enjoyable. The only kind of what I see is that it can be a little buggy around cover.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, the gameplay I would say is kind of just substandard in Red Dead 2, but like
yeah,
everything else, like the atmosphere and the story, and like just how the open world works is just so far above like almost every other game. It kind of makes up for it.
yeah. Like there has been one occasion where I've been pushed off a train by my companion because he wanted to take the cover that I was in, and I got displaced under
Yeah.
the train.
That's funny.
It hurt. It hurt bad because I had to do that entire section over again. But other than that, the game's real beautiful. Like, I'll give it that. The snow physics are great. The hunting physics are great. The fact that I could be a cowboy and lasso people to train tracks is great. And this is coming from someone who never actually touched the first Red Dead.
Oh wow. Okay,
Huh.
so yeah, so this story it pretty much like by the end it bridges right into the beginning of Red Dead 1. So it connects like the two games are very like inextricably connected. All right. Tristan?
Yeah. So I don't think we've talked about Crawl before, have we?
I don't think so.
Okay, cool. Because I've been playing a lot of it with family.
What is it?
So Crawl is this brawler indie game.
Oh, it's made by an Australian developer.
Yeah, Powerhoof.
I wonder why.
So what? The best way to describe this game is sort of like it is a party game in a sense where you start off and you're really weak. You got like a sword and you can dodge, and then the other players will play ghosts that can summon monsters, play as traps. And if they kill you, they get to become human and sort of work their way through this like never-ending dungeon. And so you go back and forth trying to kill each other to become human. You buy upgrades to become better. You can buy new weapons, magic, these little trinkets to give you special effects. The end goal is that eventually you get strong enough that you're like, oh, I can go fight the boss. And once you fight the boss and win, you're out. You've won the game. Those bosses are... Some of them are kind of easy. Some of them are incredibly hard. It gets to the point where it is pretty much a bullet hell game. You are trying to dodge 6 different beam and energy attacks that are coming at you. It's a lot of chaotic fun. And so sort of like starting off, you're like, okay, well, I'm going to start with this guy, and then I'll start with my monsters will be like this baby slug, and by the end of it, I'll have like a whale flopping around biting humans, so I can reclaim my humanity and get out of the dungeon.
And you said you've been playing it with family, right? So it supports couch co-op?
I think it's exclusively couch co-op.
That's awesome.
Yeah. You can have up to 4 people. It's just been me and my brother, but we throw on like a bot every now and then. And with one other person, it's, it's sort of like you're thinking strategically around the other one. When you get up to like 3 or 4 computers or players at a time, it's you just can't really think anymore. It's just reacting to everything that's coming at you. Every room is a death sentence in that game.
That sounds chaotic and awesome.
It's a lot of fun. And after you're done each match, you unlock something new, and you're like, well, we got to play again so we can try that thing out. I'd say one of the coolest features, which kind of was weird for me to find out the other night, was you only get 3 chances at killing the boss in the dungeon. And if you're the player that fails the 3rd time to beat the boss, the game is over and everybody else wins, but you lose your profile, essentially. Your name is deleted from the game, and
Wow.
your record of how many times you've won is deleted, but that's it. Like, nothing else is lost. It's just like, oh, my name is gone, and the record that I won 4 times is gone. I was just shocked when that happened, but crazy fun game.
Yeah, this sounds like it's right up my alley. I'm always down for a good couch co-op game because in this day and age, we could use more of them. All right, I think that's going to do it for us this week. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you, Michael and Tristan, for joining. Connor had to step out early, but I'm sure he'll be back next week. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you later. Bye.